It's a bye-week edition of Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. On the way, who are the Bills at the bye? We'll see what the numbers say and make our assessments. Are there areas in need of improvement? And Steve is quizzed on bye-week Bills history. And as always, we'll have our one burning question. Nobody's taking a break here. Pleased to have you here with us. Bills Wall of Famer Steve Tasker, Bills play-by-play man Chris Brown with you. And the Bills are at the bye. 11 games in the books, 6 games to go. And in these 3 things this week, our first thing is an assessment of this Bills team after those 11 games played. 9-2, obviously, comfortably on top of the AFC East. And suddenly the top seed in the conference is in play, thanks to Buffalo's win over Kansas City last week. So first thing, what is your overarching assessment of the Bills at 9-2?
Hard to picture them in a better spot. You would have liked to have seen the kid in Houston miss that kick, give him another win. But the Houston game is the one that you're saying, how do they lose it? But 9-2, it's better, I think, better than the projected numbers. I mean, all of us are pleasantly surprised by their record. I think also pleasantly surprised and energized by the fact that it seems they're getting better every week in certain aspects of their offense, particularly when you see role players, backup players, bottom of the roster guys coming in and contributing in major ways all across the board.
Yep.
It's pretty encouraging about the culture they've got, about the attitude they've got. And if there's one thing we know about great teams, when they start getting on a roll, it looks just like this.
Yeah.
Everybody's contributing, everybody's helping, and the team seems to be winning in different ways,
Yeah, I was trying to compare it in my head to previous versions of the Bills under McDermott, because this is the first time they're 9-2 since 1990. I mean, not even the 13-4 team in 2020 was 9-2.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy to think, because that team was a wagon on offense.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we can compare this 9-2 Bills team to any other version of it under McDermott. And I think the main reason why is because, to your point, I still don't think they've played their most complete game yet. The Week 3 game against the Jaguars was, a total annihilation of an opponent that clearly was going nowhere this season and is likely to fire their coach at the end of it. So you have to take that performance with a grain of salt to some degree. But it is a team, I agree with you, that I think is getting better, and they're getting better in the right places. You look at their upward trajectory on offense on third down conversions. Their takeaway ability has been sustained throughout the season, and it's why they're at the top of the league in that category. And then you think about the resourcefulness of this roster. We said it back in the summer, Steve. We thought that there was going to be an adjustment period at the beginning of the year. Maybe they stubbed their toe in a game or two here or there, and that's probably the Houston game, maybe even the Baltimore game. But we felt by November or December, this team had a chance to be even better than the one we saw last year in the playoffs. And I think that is coming to fruition, and that is what is exciting. Thing number 2, we knew this was a team that had more player turnover than previous years, and there would be some areas that would steadily improve in terms of their play on the field. Where do you feel this team has improved the most from the beginning of the year?
That's a good question. I think right now, they came into the league, and we came into the season, we thought they would be pretty good offensively. And
you said they'd lead the league in scoring.
I thought they'd
third
lead the league
right
in
now.
Scoring. They're third. But I think the place where they've gotten better, and you can hang this probably a little bit on Josh, I think their skill positions have really improved since the beginning of the year, because you've got more contributions. Khalil Shakir is an established pro slot, and he is excellent. He's an elite slot receiver. Coleman was just starting to spread his wings when he got injured with his wrist. Amari Cooper has added something to the mix, and his addition alone would improve the entire group. Mac Hollins has been a glue guy, a guy that people love. He's a guy that brings the group together and also has contributed in meaningful ways when he's been called upon.
Valuable role player.
Valuable role player. I think Kincaid and Knox kind of seem to be the same. Knox has made some really good big plays down the field. Kincaid has done as well. Kincaid has been curtailed by injuries of late. But those two guys and their ability to be kind of the same, you can trust both of them. Now, Kincaid's a little different player than Knox is. Knox is a little more physical in the run game and all that, but Kincaid, he's great catch radius and great efficiency. I just think the skill position, and that's not even talking about Cook and Ray Davis and the way this running game has gone. And I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. The solidity and the continuity of the offensive line has allowed all these guys to catch up and start to be who they are. Right. And Josh's ability to have changed his game the way he has and start taking those shots and making those easy button throws. I think that's been the most impressive transformation I've seen. This offense looks way different than it has ever with Josh Allen at quarterback, but it looks a lot easier.
Right, and I'm going to say what you said, but in a different way. I think where this team has improved the most is in being a team. Across the board, guys are depended upon to execute, fill roles, perform, produce in a different way than we have seen before under McDermott. And what I mean by that is the bulk of the load is no longer on 2 or 3 guys on offense and 2 or 3 guys on defense.
Right.
It is spread evenly across the group, which I think from a coaching perspective, that's a pretty ballsy approach to take because you have guys that you feel really good about counting on. Josh being obvious, Terrell Bernard, Taron Johnson, guys that have proven to you they can get the job done and produce on a weekly basis. You can't say that. You couldn't say that about everybody on this roster going into the season. Either A, because they hadn't done it before, or B, they're new to the equation and you're just got fingers crossed and hoping it works. They said, we're going to make it work, which is putting faith in your coaching staff to pull it all together and putting faith in all those guys that you did recruit to the team or draft to the team or trade for to say, this is all going to fit together and work. Yeah. And the fact that it has to this degree of success, that's where they are better than maybe any other iteration of this team before.
They are doing it differently than they have ever had to before under Sean McDermott, and they're doing it at a higher level than they've ever done it before. And that is, we talked about it on the Daily Show, this coaching staff is to be commended for the work they've done with all the new faces and the way everything looks, because it's one thing to say, we're going to try it this way. You got to get players to buy in. You got to depend on guys that you don't know if they're dependable yet. You got to get your arms around the team so that they can get their arms around each other and start to depend on each other and have guys be successful so other teammates say, yeah, we can trust him, let's go. And now you got all these guys doing, all 53 guys on the roster and guys on the practice squad who are up and who are down and bouncing back and forth between the two. It's a vibe and it's always been here with Sean McDermott. He's always been one of these rah-rah team builder guys, but this goes a level or two deeper, and it's much more evident to the casual observer than we've ever been exposed to before. I think you really got to give Sean McDermott kudos for the season this team has put together.
Thing number 3, is there an area of the team that you believe still needs a bit of shoring up down the stretch here, especially with some very competitive games on the immediate horizon the next 3 weeks out of the bye?
Yes. I like where they're at defensively. I think their pass rush, when they're healthy and they get some guys off the injury, they're going to be better, even more, and have more depth. I think the one place I'd like some reassurances would be on special teams. Tyler Bass, I think he's going to be fine. He's going to make the kicks we need him to make, no question about it. I am confident in him. The coverage teams, I still think they're feeling themselves out a little bit at times.
And they're not getting any game practice.
They're not getting any reps on
everything's
kickoff
a touchback.
Kickoff coverage bothers me because we don't see it. And you're not good at it unless you get some reps. Now, this team's scoring a lot of points, but at this point in the season, they're kicking everything out of the end zone. And I don't have a problem with that if they can continue to do it. Certainly in games like Detroit's going to be indoors, they'll be able to do that. Rams are going to be able to do that. So that, there's going to get away with it in some other places. But this coming game after the bye, the San Francisco game, we have no idea what the weather's going to be like.
And it's at night. It's Sunday night.
It's rough. I'll say this, though. Codrington has been an enormous boost for this club.
Bills lead the league in average drive start going into that Kansas City
and
game.
It's Codrington
almost their 38-yard line.
I think his decision-making back there, now obviously his abilities, his speed, and his vision, and his running ability are just where you would be for an NFL punt return guy. They're elite. I mean, the guy can go. But his decision-making is what gives you confidence.
Yeah.
So I think I want to see more punt coverage. I want to see better kickoff coverage. We haven't been tested yet, and that bothers me.
Okay. Yeah, the Bills have also got the most offensive possessions in opponent territory this season also. That's partly due to Codrington and partly due to all the takeaways. 17 drive starts in opponent territory. As far as shoring up, there's two things that I would like to see improve here, and maybe not in a dramatic way, but I think it needs to be better if you're going to beat these teams that you got coming up on the schedule here these next 3 weeks. I think, and this is a little recency bias, but I think they have to be more productive, more consistent in gaining yardage on first down. That's been a problem of late, and maybe it's coupled with the fact that they played some pretty good run defenses the last couple of weeks. And then on defense, I think this will be aided by the team getting healthier on that side of the ball, but the pass rush is predicated on getting pressure with 4, and I don't believe through the course of the season they have done that enough. It looked good against the Chiefs, but they have problems at both tackle positions. It should be a problem for the Chiefs in that game against this group, and it was. It's got to be better coming up here, because you can't have a guy like Jared Goff with all day to throw. He will slice and dice you to the tune of 400 yards and 5 touchdowns if you don't have a pass rush against him, and you need to rush 4 and drop 7. And that has to be better. I do believe with Dwayne Carter able to come off injured reserve now after 4 weeks on IR with the wrist surgery, if he can come back, that adds another explosive element to your rush package on the interior besides just Ed Oliver, who curiously has not been nearly as productive as he was last year. So adding another explosive guy there. If DeJuan Smoot can come back sooner rather than later, that guy is more explosive. Those two players are certainly more explosive than Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. Now, I'm not saying that there's no value in having Phillips and Jefferson on your defensive front, but they're more of the clogging variety.
Right.
Whereas Smoot and Carter are more of the penetrating, run a quarterback down variety. And because of that, I think that's sorely needed up front to help fortify not only the production in their pass rush, but the depth of it as well. Those are areas that I would like to see take an uptick here down the stretch if you want to beat some of these teams they've got on the horizon. All right, among the other areas to wonder about, the run game. As I mentioned, there was some tough sledding against the Chiefs in their last game, the league's third-best run defense. Buffalo ranks 15th in rushing. In their next 3 games, Buffalo faces the 9th, 10th, and 11th ranked run defenses in order: Niners, Rams, Lions. Is the run game productive enough heading into this final stretch of the regular season?
I like where the run game is, no question. It doesn't scare me, the run production, because here's the thing. I know that when push comes to shove, the Bills can run it when they want to run it, and they'll be committed to it. They don't abandon it, even if it's tough sledding like it was in the Chiefs game.
Yeah.
They're always going to be able to hand the football off because all the games they play the rest of the year, they're going to be in it or leading. They're not going to be down by 3 scores. So the run game is going to be present. And we saw their ability to convert third downs. Half their third downs against the Kansas City Chiefs were 7 yards plus. And they were 60% conversion rate.
Yeah.
You don't want to put that kind of pressure on it.
You can't live like that, though, for long periods of time.
No, but it's in the tank, and that gives me confidence that they're going to be able to do this. There's a big difference between the Chiefs' run defense and the Niners' run defense, the Rams' run defense, and Detroit's run defense. You look at the San Francisco, they played the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Vikings, the Jets. None of those teams run it as well as the Bills do. I'm confident in the Bills' run game because of their offensive line and their commitment to it. Now, certainly, the Bills have never been one of those. They're not going to be one of those teams that runs for 260 yards. They're not going to be a Baltimore Raven type of attack. But I'm confident that their run game is going to be able to lift its leg of the table up and keep this offense balanced.
Yeah, my concern, as I said earlier, surfaced from their lack of first down production against the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs are a top 3 run defense. These 3 teams not quite as good, but still respectable in that area of defense. And you look at the Rams game, their defensive line is the strength of that defense. You got 3 or 4 super athletic kids. All of them are like first and second round picks, and they can really go. You want to talk about filling a gap. They got defensive linemen that can fill a gap just as fast as a linebacker. That's a good crew they got out there in L.A., and they'll be playing at home. So the run game has to be up to the test there. San Francisco just got Dre Greenlaw back, and he's lining up next to Fred Warner at the second level. You got some mean old dogs there in Greenlaw and Warner, who's a perennial all-pro. You got some high-caliber players that are going to say, you're not running today.
Yeah.
And the Bills have to be up to that test. I just want to be mindful of the approach there, number one. And then number two, I do not think the Bills can afford to live in the 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 world and expect to convert 60% every week like they did last week against the Chiefs. In a given game, sure, maybe it'll work. But week after week after week, that's a dangerous place to live. And so they've got to do better than +1 or 0 on first down in the run game.
I'll say this, though. I think the Rams have struggled against teams.
Their problem is pass defense.
Yeah.
That's their problem.
They struggle against offenses.
They've given up 18 touchdown passes in 10 games.
Right. They struggle against Detroit. They struggle against Arizona. Even Chicago beat the Rams. The Packers beat them. And of late, the Dolphins beat them, and the Patriots gave them all they could handle defensively. So each of the games we're talking about kind of this next stretch of games.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Niners, the Rams, and the Lions. They're all 3 different, and they're going to ask the Bills to do something different offensively to win. This Rams team, the Bills are going to throw it around on them. The running game will be there, but yeah, I think that's a different animal.
Okay.
So I think in the matchups and stuff, I think the Bills are going to be fine with the run game, pass game, all of that. And the Rams are a perfect example of the fact that you may not have to hand it off all game.
On the other side of the ball, the Bills, as we said, are tied for the league in takeaways with 21. They have at least 1 takeaway in every game this season and 7 games in which they've recorded multiple takeaways. That also leads the league. Can that takeaway prowess continue?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I don't know. It's the most unpredictable of statistics. Certainly the Bills have an attitude for it. Their secondary has got some guys that, I'll say that they've dropped a couple as well. So, but they haven't dropped as many as they've caught, right? I mean, when it's there to get, they get it. And they're really in tune and committed to punching it out in the run game as well. So, as you get closer to the end of the season, some of these teams have a propensity to turn it over. That'll probably still happen. But I think when you get in the playoffs, that's the one thing you cannot count on because you're playing really good football teams who don't. You're good because you don't turn it over, and that's a problem. So if you're going to start depending on it,
well, they've largely depended on it. If you look at their defensive rankings, they're middle of the pack in total defense, middle of the pack in run defense. They're not even top 5 in pass defense. They're winning defensively because of takeaways. They're getting extra possessions for their offense. That's why they're scoring 30 points a game.
But you think,
so
why are they getting them is because, like, the first one out of the gate, Pat Mahomes getting dragged down for a sack,
Yeah.
and he flings it out. That's the kind of desperation this defense can put their an offense into, so they do force those turnovers,
Yes.
even with teams who don't really turn it over. I know Mahomes is doing a lot in the regular season, but that is a defensive plus, and that kind of attitude and commitment and good play of getting the other team desperate, which is also aided by the offense scoring, yeah, that'll continue. That'll continue.
I watched the mic'd up video that our in-house video department put together on Terrell Bernard for the Colts game. And Terrell Bernard pregame is talking to his teammates about nothing but takeaways for about 5 different clips. Everything he's saying, he's talking about taking the ball away. And then he gets bumped by the linebacker or gets bumped by the receiver when he jumps a route and he can't hold on to it. He's talking about the one he didn't get the rest of the game. Anybody who would listen on the sideline, he's telling him, I had it, I got bumped, I lost it. Then after Terran's interception on the first play of the game for the Colts offense, on the sideline, the coaching staff is saying, all right, we got to get the next one now. We got to finish with 4. 4. Like,
yeah.
The bar under Leslie Frazier used to be 2 takeaways, hold him to 17 points. These guys are talking about getting 4 a game.
Yeah.
Like, the bar has been raised.
Yeah.
And the team has been pretty close to reaching that bar.
Yeah.
And if that's the mindset, that can continue, because to me, there are very few teams that have sustained that level of takeaway prowess for an entire football season. And I'm very, very curious as to how this defense will look if the game comes at some point in time where they don't get a single takeaway. Because they've gotten at least one in every game this season. I don't think I've seen that in a long time.
Well, it's been true that, notoriously Josh at the beginning of the season was on a stretch where he didn't turn it over at all, right? So
first 7, 8 games.
They're doing a good job of protecting it. Now as you put the ball at risk and you're starting to spread your wings as an offense and starting to try some things and getting more guys involved, yeah, the ball's been at risk more and they've turned it over a couple of times. But I think, it's going to be an issue going forward one way or the other. I think this team is good enough to win without them, but nobody wins when you're negative. Right? Sooner or later, that catches up with. If you're -2, you're done. -1, you can kind of overcome because then you could have lost the coin flip and, you miss out on a possession. But when you're down 2 possessions, and particularly at times in the game where the other team is going to come away with points, when you do it in your own end, those are critical. Those are backbreaking for an offense to turn it over in the other team's end, because most of the work has been done and now it's for nothing. It's an unpredictable stat. I'll say it again, but this team is on the right path in the way they approach it, and
it's a game-changing
You've
stat.
got to, you've got to be committed to it, even if you go without them for a minute.
Yeah, and they
have.
completely have. Finally, and we may have touched on some of this already, but if you believe this team is truly a Super Bowl contender, what is it that you think makes this team different and perhaps gives them a better chance than the previous iterations that were trying to get to the mountaintop before them under McDermott?
I think this team has more guys who can win a game than teams of the past. There are more guys who this team would go ahead and depend on in a game to win it. I don't think this is a team that has to go to 2 guys. I think they can go to 6 guys, 7 guys, and throw a game winner at any of those guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's different.
And what helps, which goes to my point from earlier, this is the best team that they have had. Might not even be the most talented in terms of high-end elite talent on this roster that maybe some of McDermott's previous rosters have had. But in terms of an across-the-board team, this might be the best collection. The sum is greater than its parts argument. That is the case here. This might be the best team, and I don't have to tell this to Steve because he said it. Very often the teams standing at the end of the season are the ones who are the best team, not the best individual talent leading them or what have you. And I think Josh has even incorporated himself into that thinking because he's not trying to be Superman every week. And you credit Joe Brady and Sean McDermott for this to some degree, too, for convincing him that he doesn't have to be Superman. He wants to win so bad, he's willing to do anything and everything, body on the line, all this stuff. And that's what he has done the previous 6-7 seasons. Now he has bought in to this thought that if we're just the best team, that's the best way for us to win this whole enchilada. And I think that is where they are clearly better than the previous versions of the Bills under McDermott and Bean.
They have 6 games left in the regular season. And the bye week came at a moment when they got out of the Kansas City game without any new significant injuries. 2 weeks off, and they were getting healthier even going into the Kansas City game. Cooper actually made it on. Coleman was out early, but he's got another 2 weeks before he has to even suit up to practice. Smoot, Carter, Spencer Brown. This is a team, Kincaid. We have talked about at the end of the season, and I've been talking to Brownie about this, about the Baltimore Ravens, how good they looked early in the season, and it's hard to play that well for an extended period. You want to be playing well at the end, after winning some games maybe nobody thought you'd win and staying in the conversation, then play good at the end, sprint to the finish, get in the playoffs, healthy. This team is headed down that road. Now, there's another team out, Detroit Lions, a perfect example. They are flying high.
They're annihilating.
They have been flying high since week 1 of the regular season. 6 more weeks of that, playing it. They hung half 100 on. Now it's Jacksonville, you can stick a fork in those guys, okay, but they dominated a lesser opponent. It is hard to play as well as the Lions are right now. The Baltimore Ravens were at the beginning of the season. It's hard to play that well for 4 months.
Yeah.
You want to be playing
the league's
there.
Too competitive.
You've got a crescendo, and this Bills team is doing that. And this bye hits them right. 6 weeks to sprint to the finish. The division is all but done, all but tied up, so they can afford to be very cautious about who they play and how much they play him, how many reps they give him. If a guy's got a shaving nick, he can sit down this week. They've got that kind of margin of error. Now, the 1 seed and all that is in there as well, and I get all that. But, man, oh, man, when you hit the playoffs, this team should be razor sharp and healthy.
One last point on how we feel they're the best team in the McDermott era. Just by virtue of having to lean on all those different players through the course of this regular season, if you get to the postseason and, God forbid, somebody goes down in a playoff game, they're just going to shrug it off because they have already proven to themselves that other guys can pick up the slack and they can keep winning football games.
Yeah.
Psychologically, that is a huge edge going into the postseason.
It is so different as a guy on the sidelines or a guy in that locker room. And say, for instance, Keon goes down or Coleman goes. One of those two guys goes down. At the end, say, give the ball to Mack. Throw it to Mack instead.
Yeah. Kincaid or
throw it to Holland. Say, we got him with that. We got Curtis Samuel's our guy. Let's go.
Yeah, because
we've
they've
got
done
guys
it before.
He's done it. Let's do that again. And that attitude that you translate over that. Now, what I got to do, if I'm one of those guys in the locker room, that's going on the offensive side, not a DB. I say, well, that's okay. We got it. I'm going to do my thing. Let's go. That is a very different mindset to be in, rather than, man, I wonder how
psychological edge.
I wonder how those guys are going to handle that over there. Wonder, that because now you got this concern that somebody else isn't going to be able to do their thing, so your thing might not matter.
Yeah,
very different mindset to be in, and all this and that subtlety, those subtle differences in your mindset and your attitude, make a big difference in Monday through Saturday. Winning the game Monday through Saturday so that Sunday you have done everything you can possibly do to get ready and win that game. If you got doubts and concerns and problems all through the week, your preparation suffers. And having having the other attitude it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Time now for the numbers game where Steve will be quizzed on Bills bye week history. Let's do it. Now, Steve, in this bye week, I've become a little bit charitable.
Oh.
The first question here is something that we actually discussed on our daily show, One Bills Live. So this is this equates to a layup for you. Question number 1. What Bills head coach has the highest winning percentage after the bye in team history?
Sean McDermott, 7-0.
Correct. 100%.
Thank you.
Question 2. What Bills head coach
We should
has...
always start with a layup. I'm just going to
There's your layup. You're
Thank
1
you.
for 1.
Yeah, I want that next week as well.
What Bills head coach has the most wins after the bye week in team history?
Marv.
It is Marv Levy. 8 victories. Very good. 2 for 2. Question 3. Which team did Buffalo beat for their last post-bye week victory?
Kansas City Chiefs.
That would be correct. He's 3 for 3.
Let's go!
Can he make it a clean sweep in the numbers game, ladies and gentlemen? Question 4.
Come on.
And under Sean McDermott, what would you guess is Buffalo's average margin of victory in their 7 previous post-bye victories?
I will say...
Average margin of victory.
I'm going to give you a range.
And I'll even round up if necessary.
I'll give you a range.
Okay.
3 to 5 points.
That would be incorrect. So close, Steve. So close to
what
the
is it?
clean sweep in the
What
numbers
is it?
game. Do you want to take a second guess?
Yeah. 2 to 4 points.
No.
Oh,
It's larger.
5
7.7
Really?
points on average for their
All right.
margin of victory. 4 of Buffalo's last 5 post-bye games have been won by double digits. The only one that wasn't
It was the Chiefs last year.
last year against the Chiefs, 20-17. Steve was
That's
so
disappointing.
close to his first ever
That is
clean
disappointing.
sweep in the numbers game. But you batted 750.
That's-
There's no shame in that.
Disappointing that the Bills beat those teams by that much.
Okay.
I couldn't
Yeah,
get that right.
We all know it's all about Steve
Yeah, that's
in
right.
the numbers game.
All right.
Bills fans, get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app today to play any way you want. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. Best of all, you'll get paid your winnings fast. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Buffalo Bills. We move now to our one burning question. As we know, the Bills have a handful of players that have missed time, still rehabbing injuries. Some are on the active roster, others are on IR. Whose return to the lineup, Steve, do you think could make the biggest difference down the stretch?
I gotta say Keon Coleman.
Okay.
I just think he was starting to. He's being some. I think because he is the one who changes things for the opponent more than the other guys. Kincaid certainly changes it, but I think Keon is a guy that tilts the field.
He is a matchup problem.
He's a matchup problem, just like Amari is. And so I think you get those two guys out there with, and whatever, you just put it out there. I think Keon's presence on the roster and on the field doing what he does is a real problem for defenses. And because of the effect he has on their evaluation of the Bills personnel, I think he's the guy I would say.
I would have said Keon too, but since you picked him, I'll pick another guy, and I'll say Dwayne Carter.
Yeah.
But it's ironic that we're both picking rookies. What does
yeah.
that say about the draft class that
Yeah.
Brandon Beane brought in here? But I think Carter, much like Coleman, was just starting to hit critical mass in his rookie year and then has the wrist injury, has to have surgery. I think there's a very good chance that he comes back right after the bye and plays and is back in the lineup. And to me, I think he adds an extra dynamic to that interior pass rush. And I think he is a phenomenal player in the run front as well in that second wave that comes through with Austin Johnson, A.J. Epinesa, Von Miller. It's a heck of a group,
got a good group
to throw in as a second wave, and Carter lifts the quality of that group. And look, the guy makes plays in the backfield, tackles for loss. He gets pressure on the quarterback. He's got quarterback hits and sacks. So to me, I think if you pick a guy on offense, it's Coleman. I think if you pick a guy on defense, it's Carter. Both of them rookies, and I think that just speaks to the job that this personnel department does year in and year out. Our closing figure deals with a projection we gave you a couple of weeks ago from ESPN Analytics on Buffalo's odds to reach the AFC title game and then the odds to win it, to get further than they ever have under head coach Sean McDermott. Now at 9-2, the Bills' chances of reaching the AFC Championship game are just about even with the Chiefs. Kansas City's chances, 48.5%. Buffalo, 47.3%. And then when it comes to winning the AFC title game, the Bills have a slightly higher chance to pull that off than the Chiefs, 26.8% to 25.6%. Even the projections have it as a neck-and-neck race to the finish. That'll do it for this edition. Be sure to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice so you know when our next episode is out, because when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the Numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time, everybody.